Uh, Greetings and welcome, brothers, to another episode of the Healthy Brotherhood Experience with my co-host, Lucia Boyd, out of the 313 Detroit, and myself, JT Hale, out of the ATL in the 404. And we have another author on the podcast this evening. Out of Houston, Texas, Houston chapter, Brother Aaron Burros. Brother Aaron, welcome to the podcast.
The 713, the 281, and the 832, and the 346.
All the above.
Plus, and they're about to add another one.
Yeah, I could run off about 5 more area codes for the ATL, but I just discovered another one the other day. Hey, man, but welcome. Glad to have you on board, man. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Appreciate it. Thank y'all for having me.
Yes, sir. Lucia, good to see you again, my man.
Hey, good to be seen, man. Good to be back to the Healthy Brotherhood Experience.
That's right. That's right.
Like a man told me, it's better to be seen than viewed.
Truly. True. Let me do the viewing. You got it. You got it. So, man, how's it going down there in Houston, man?
Man, it's hot. It's hot. It's heated down in the South right now. Well, they're baking cookies. They're baking cookies in the mailbox, frying eggs on the sidewalk, and roasting chickens on the roof.
That's Texas.
That's hot. But I wouldn't trade it for any other place in the world, man.
I understand. I do feel you. Man. So, brother, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Well, I grew up in Akron, Ohio, West Side. Shout outs to Bookto High School. Yeah. And my mom moved us down to Houston when I was 10 years old. I was in the 4th grade, going to the 5th grade. And the 6th grade, they ended up putting in the middle school. So I jumped to middle school early, jumped to high school early, and grew up, got recruited by the military as a sophomore in high school. I was going to be in the espionage program.
Wow.
Didn't go there because my brother was in the Navy. He was a swab decker too.
Oh,
he was on the he was on the USS Missouri during the Gulf War. Yeah. And ended up being on the USS George Washington after that. I had an older brother that was dying at the time. Had a brother that was a Rolling Stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And my other brother was actually electronic warfare specialist. They were the ones shooting the Scud missiles out of the sky during the Gulf War. So his team was responsible for that.
Wow.
And so my mom didn't want me to go dark. I was about to go over to Europe for 2 years, go dark for training and stuff. And so she talked to my recruiter because I was the youngest in my family. They gave me an honorable discharge. So I stayed home, helped take care of my older brother. He died a year later, ended up going to the left, to the right, not the right way, got into the music business, was very successful in the music business. Actually left that because I felt the tug of God on my heart. We was in the studio recording, fixing up our an album that I called How's It Feel? And my manager was looking at me, he's like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I don't think God want me to do this. He said, well, you don't think God wants you doing this, don't do it. Now I was in the studio recording. The only person that was out major back then that was in the same studio that I was in recording was Face. He was doing his solo project. This was when Destiny's Child had 7 Destiny children in the group. They hadn't even been out yet.
Bun B, very early. Yeah.
Yeah. Bun B, 8-Ball and MJG.
Mm-hmm.
Draper's Suave House. I mean, anybody from the South. I was right there on the cusp of that. And I actually had a song that later on, the Yin Yang Twins would use, and people was like, hey, you need to sue them. And that was that song, To the Windows, to the Wall. Yeah, so I still got that copyright and everything. My song was called Gangsta Lean, but pretty much everybody took my tracks and just, when I walked away, Face used this one track called Action Speaks Louder Than Words. He retitled it, used the hook and track and stuff. But my life was totally different. I started walking towards the Lord. And that was a wrap from there. I was in the College of Biblical Studies in Houston. I did a 4-year degree, had my own company where I was doing radio, retail, internet, and video marketing. And from there, I found myself being like almost 400 pounds. I took a shower one day, tried to wrap the towel around myself and couldn't wrap it around myself. I tried to tie the corners of the towel to hold it up, on my hip. Couldn't even tie it. I was just like, I'm disgusted. I looked at myself in that mirror. I said, something got to change. And prayed to God for help. Next thing I know, my truck broke down. My engine went bad. And that's when gas prices was going through the roof. And I was like, you know what? I'm moving closer to work. 2 miles to work in the morning, 2 miles home. I rode bikes. I walked. I started off small, 15 minutes. It was 15 minutes. 15 turned into 20, 20 turned into 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. When I hit an hour, I was happy. Then I went from an hour to an hour 10, hour 20, hour 30, hour 40. Next thing you know, I was running ultra marathons and I was 178 pounds lighter.
Wow.
Yes. So I never ran marathons. I was actually just running to lose weight, to stay healthy, to deal with stress. And I didn't know anything about really people running marathons. The only thing I knew about was the Boston Marathon. So when somebody told me, you ought to run a marathon, I'm like, nah, I ain't fast like them dudes. I thought that's like a marathon. That's all the people that participate in a marathon. I never knew anything more. One day my pastor talked to me. He said, have you ever thought about running professionally, trail running? Because we got a park down here in Houston called Terry Hershey Park, and it's beautiful. It has everything you need, every elevation level, everything you need to run and exercise and everything else. But he asked me had I thought about running professional. So I was like, nah, not really. He said, I've been looking at your times you be posting and you be in those woods running like that. He's like, I talked to my coach because he runs for health and wellness, but he talked to his coach at Fort Bend Fit and scheduled an appointment with me to talk to him. We got to chopping it up. And he started telling me about trail running in the Western states and, Badwater, all these runs, man. And I'm like listening to him and he looking at my time. He said, you ain't had no training? I was like, nah. He said, you ran track in high school? He said, nah. I said, I played basketball and football. That was it. I didn't want to run at all. So he started, Andy was his name, Andy Stewart. He owned a store in Sugar Land called Finish Line. He's since passed over COVID, but I was like interested. Then he started telling me about the money, the prizes you can win and the money and the purses, and if you get on a team and all this and that. And we was adding up the digits, and I'm like, man, you talking about 75 to 100K plus for running? He was like, yeah. I was like, sign me up. And then 2 weeks before what is called the base run, he wanted me to run with some professional runners at the Brazos Bend 100 down here in Brazos Bend State Park in Houston. He wanted me to run with them to see how I would hang with them. And 2 weeks before that at work, that's when I got shot. I went through a workplace shooting, got shot 5 times. And that was that was a wrap as far as my professional running career.
So pause that right there. In case you all missed it, Aaron said he was shot not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 5 times.
5 times.
And this was a workplace shooter.
Yeah, this was
situation?
workplace shooting. I was in retail management and got a call on the overhead for help up front. Went up there thinking, you know, it's just some crazy customer or whatever. A fight had broke out with one of the employees and some people that was in the store. Started to break them up. The dude was told his homeboy to go get the tool and put in work. I'm like, oh, that's not good. You know, like I said, I grew up in Akron, Ohio. So I knew what the street jargon was, and people sitting around like they didn't hear it. And so I'm trying to break the fight up, get people inside the building. You know, people with their attitude, like, well, you can't tell me what to do, you know. And I'm like, get in. I ain't got time to argue with you. Get inside, get inside. And next thing you know, the dude come back, start shooting. Then everybody want to run inside.
Oh, now y'all want to come inside.
Now they want to run inside, but the 2 guys that was fighting, one employee, the one guy was still holding him. So I broke them up. I put the one guy in a chokehold like this, right in front of me, and told the other guy to go get in the building, Well, his partner, we was standing up. He was right, you know, he wasn't that far from me, 3 to 5 feet at the most. You know, he told me to, you know, basically let his nigga go. And I was like, you know, I'm gonna let him go. Y'all go on about your business. I'm holding him like this. And so, boy, he just shoots and hits me right here. The bullet takes a chunk of skin out, hits my rib and ricochets. And I'm holding the guy like this. So it's only like a portion of my side showing. I'm like, this dude is a killer. Because he aimed to hit me right there, and he knew what he was doing. Wow. And so when he shot me, his homeboy grabbed back like that on me, and I pulled him back because he was trying to buck me off of him. I put him back, and we was on the ground. So now I got him like this because now I'm in a bad position. I'm on the ground, so I got to keep him now in front of me because especially the dude didn't already shot at me. So he telling me to let the dude go again and stuff. I'm like, man, I'm gonna let him go. Y'all go ahead about your business. Let me make it, you know. Everything over. Everybody's gone. You can hear the police in the background and everything. So I let the dude up, right? I'm on my back with my knees up like I'm about to do some, you know, some sit-ups or something. Got my hands up like this. And I'm telling the dude, man, just go on about your business. So his homeboy was like, finish him off, kill him. And the dude stepped up over me and was like, yeah, you let my nigga go now, huh? I bet you next time somebody tell you something, you will do it. And it was like at that moment, I kid you not, everything slowed down. I thought about my kids. I got 2 girls, 3 boys. They all adults, 32 to 22. Just had my first grandbaby. And so I'm sitting there thinking about my kids, like, what are they going to do? How are they going to get this information? You know, how they going to feel? And then I look at the guy's eyes and I say to myself, Lord, I guess this is how I feel before somebody murder you. And my eyes got drawn to where his finger was on a trigger. And it was like I could see him pull it. I mean, it just went like it was slow motion. And I heard the Holy Spirit tell me, roll over. And I rolled over like this. And at the same time, he had pulled the trigger. I heard the gunshot and everything sped back up. I rolled over, the bullet hit behind me on the ground, and the Holy Spirit told me to get up and run. So I got up and ran, hopped to my feet and ran. I stayed low. And that's exactly what I was thinking about, running back, because I played quarterback in high school. In college, I was supposed to go, but I didn't go. But I remember just stay low. Don't give him a big target to hit. Stay low. So I got shot 4 more times in the lower back buttocks area. Had a bullet travel through, missed my inner left thigh, my femoral artery by 1 centimeter. Matter of fact, when I got to the hospital, the nurse, because I was complaining about it itching real bad down there, the nurse looked down there and he pulled the bullet fragment out of my leg. It was sticking out of my leg. He could pull it out with his fingers.
Wow.
And so they sent me to go get an X-ray of that right there, or MRI or something. But they seen that it had missed my femoral artery by 1 centimeter. I had 1 bullet removed from my right buttocks area tissue. And then I had another bullet that's in my gluteus maximus, my right gluteus maximus. So my right leg, the muscle power is gradually getting weaker. So I went from, and keep in mind, I was running 50. So my goal, I love the 50-mile run. I used to do, when I got to running, I would do anywhere from 20 to 30 up to 40 miles on my long runs.
That's amazing.
And when I ran, like my 40 milers, I ran those. My average pace was 7 minutes and 2 seconds.
Ooh, no.
And so that was like for 40 miles.
Whoosh.
And you know, I used to joke with people. They'd be like, "How can you run like that?" I said, it gets to a point where it hurts to stop. And you stop, you see your muscles just jumping and your leg doing this. And so when you run that much, you can't just stop. You can, but you gotta continue to jog and you gotta let your muscles cool down, like you have to let them warm up.
Right.
So,
right.
you know, I had the surgery and all that. I went to the hospital, wasn't nothing life-threatening. So they let me go. They wanted me to see a specialist to have the surgery to remove the bullets. They told me they could remove the one that was in my muscle, the actual gluteus maximus muscle, but then I will be walking with a cane for the rest of my life. I told them I didn't want that. And after the assessment, now remember it was 2 weeks before the run when I got shot. So it was about a week before the run when I had the assessment from the surgeon. And I asked him, I said, "Doc," I said, can I run still?" He looked at me and laughed. He said, "Run?" I said, "Yeah, I got an ultra marathon coming up." He said, how long you running?" I said, 50 miles. He looked at me and laughed. He said, "You can run. It just depends on how much pain you can take." And so I got out there, man. I got close to 35 miles and started falling, like just tripping, falling. And it was this paramedic from San Antonio that was running, and he had been behind me. He'd been watching. And so he come up to me at one point. He said, "Man, what's wrong with you?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, I've been following you for about a mile or so, and you done fell like 3 times. And he said, ain't nothing there to trip you." I said, I think my foot just getting stuck in the ground or whatever. And so we talked a little bit, kept running, bam, fell again. He said, "Man, something not right." He said, "I'm a paramedic." He said, "From San Antonio, I'm up here. I'm doing a run too." He said, "But I'm concerned about you." He said, "Why you keep falling so much?" And so I explained it to him. And he, looking at me, checking me out and stuff. And he was like, "Man, I tell you what," he said, "why don't you walk to the next aid station, see how you feel, let your body rest a little bit, keep walking, and then try to pick up a run in another 2 to 3 miles. I was like, cool. So I did that. Man, went to run again. I'm running. The stress hit my body. Next thing you know, I'm experiencing vertigo. I don't know if you ever had vertigo. You don't want vertigo.
Mm-mm.
You don't want vertigo. Oh no. I couldn't. I was out there running in a circle. People had to literally come grab me and take me somewhere to sit down. And then they brought a cart out on the trail and they took me back. I got checked out by the doctor and everything. But I already knew what was going on. And it was just that my body was under so much stress still that I had no idea about PTSD. But my body was being triggered as though I was still in that situation with the shooting, because the stress that I was putting on it, because by that time I was at mile 40. So I only had 10 more miles to finish. And I'm sitting up there like, I want to finish. I only got 10 miles. And the guy like, man, you can't even walk straight. Get in this cart. I was like, you hate to not finish a race, and it went downhill ever since. My running has gone downhill ever since. It got to a point where I literally struggled to walk a half a mile. And then so I had 2 physical therapists. I had a trainer. I went to this rehab center, and I worked hard to get back to where I would go out and try to run, and the glutes were not firing. They just don't fire. And it's not something that you miss until it's not working. And then you can tell the difference. It's like driving a car with an emergency brakes on. You pushing that gas, the engine revving, and you're like, what's slowing this thing down? That's how it is. And so it was very frustrating for me to go from running like I was running to not being able to run like that. It was very frustrating for me. I didn't have any other mechanism that I was using in order to deal with the stress. I wasn't on drugs, wasn't smoking, wasn't drinking. I had my faith, praying to God. I was getting mental health help, which I had to fight for, which was ridiculous after what I went through. But I started seeing a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and been seeing them for going on 8 years almost. And so learned a lot about PTSD. I had to learn how to cope with it, how to, guard against my triggers. I mean, it was crazy. I would find myself like in the bathroom at a gas station up under the counter because I felt like somebody was going to kill me. And I'll be up under there and I want to get from up under there, but I'm paralyzed with fear. I'm paralyzed with this imminent threat that I'm going to die, sick to my stomach.
Wow.
And I'm crying. And this would happen in public too. I go out to eat. And so it got to the point I withdrew from everything and everybody. I stayed in a house, which wasn't good because I was depressed. Then I started going outside to Starbucks, and I was just basically living at Starbucks. So when I did my 50th, when I celebrated my 50th birthday in 2021 by attempting to run 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 weeks and trying to raise $50,000 for St. Jude's, that was me holding on to hope that I could live again. No matter what, I could live again, that I could do something again. So I went to, I was pacing marathons anywhere from 2:55 to 4:10. So I went out just thinking, you know what? I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna knock these marathons out. I'm gonna take it easy because my doctor told me I need to take it easy. I said, so I'm gonna do these marathons in about 4.5 to 5 hours. I had no idea the damage that the bullets had did to my glutes, the scarring, how the fibers. I had no understanding of how your fibers work and the biggest muscle in your body. And it's like when all the fibers are torn, it takes so long for them to reattach, and that once the glutes shut down, it's a wrap. I mean, I can't do anything else. So I was way disappointed that I think the first marathon I came in was like 6.5 hours. I was like, whoa, what the woo? You know, I'm like, this is way beyond what I wanted to do, you know? So I had to deal with the runner's depression. Somebody in a running group on Facebook told me I had runner's depression. And I was like, dude, y'all making stuff up. And so he talked to me about it, and because he had runner's depression. He had something happen to him where he had to stop running all of a sudden, and he was an ultra marathoner as well. And he was like, you got runner's depression. You're so used to your runner's high. You're so used to being de-stressed and all this other stuff. You can't do it. You frustrated. He started explaining stuff to me, and I'm like, yeah, that's how I'm feeling, you know? So I end up getting with my doctors, talking about that. I had to work through that. I had to learn about PTSD. I went to the world's #1 authority on PTSD for the world up in Boston to go get examined by him. And he said that my PTSD is worse than combat PTSD. And it was just crazy. I think his name is Dr. Pittman. I can't remember it offhand, but he used to be over the Veterans Administration under several presidents. I think he retired with Cheney. Bush and Cheney was in office. He retired from being over the Veterans Affairs for the government and everything. But it just wasn't. And on top of that, just so you know, and if you read the book, there's so much more that's going on. But on top of that, I had to deal with continuing threats from these guys trying to take my life.
The same guys.
The same guys.
Were they ever arrested, caught, and put in jail? I hope the answer is yes.
They were caught. The Houston Police Department organized crime unit cut a deal with them. I don't know what it was, but they were never arrested, never prosecuted. It took me over 2 years just to find out what happened with my case.
Wow.
The DA's office was like, we never got anything from the police. I called the police. They didn't know anything. And it was like, you know, I got this card from this detective. This event happened. It was just, see, it's different now when a workplace shooting happens. So many people asking questions. People are holding people accountable. But 8 years ago when it happened, I worked for a company that is a multi-billion-dollar a year company, very active in politics. They swept it under the rug. They covered it up. They paid people off. And even though I was 3 times, one time a guy actually shot at me, and then he ended up dead. And he got murdered. And I called the detective and told the detective what happened, and that the guy that was on the news was the guy that tried to kill me from these guys. And he was like, I'm gonna check into it, but the company took care of him, so he wasn't trying to check into anything. He kept telling me, how do you know? How do you know? I said, it was the same guy. It was the same description, the same car, down to the same cap the guy had on when he got shot at the Buffalo Wild Wings. I said, that was on the news. I said, you go back. You were supposed to go back and put a police report from the sheriff's department out in Fort Bend County. I said, I'm going to contact him. I'm going to contact him and get the report and this and that. I said, it's the same car. It's the same guy, down to the same cat. So 2 weeks later, you hear on the news, they said that the shooting that took place was drug related, and they didn't have any suspects. If anybody in the public had any information, please call Crime Stoppers. And that's all you heard about that.
That's it.
Even
Wow.
though I know what it was. So it got so bad that whatever took place, whatever the police were doing, the third time they tried to kill me after the shooting at the store, third time they tried to kill me, I was going to call the police. I went away from my place because the guy was there at where I lived in a parking lot. So I got in my car, went to safety, went to go call the police, and there was a police car at the Starbucks. And so I told the police officer, somebody just tried to kill me. He was like, are you serious? And I told him, and he was like, okay. So let me finish with this lady, and I'm going to be right with you. So he finishes with the lady. He sits down with me at the table, and he got his laptop open. He asks me my name. I give it to him. He pulls up something, and he's reading it. He looks at me, shuts his laptop, gets up, walk out to Starbucks, walks out the Starbucks, get in his patrol car, and leaves. The police wouldn't even take a report from me. And so I don't know what took place, but that's when I started doing interviews. I started talking to anybody that would listen. The gentleman that wrote the book, Dr. Lauren Murfield, that helped me write the book, I met him at a hot chocolate run in Tampa. We were running, and I had them tell them I was pacing back then. I said, tell me your name, tell me your story, and tell me your glory. Why are you here? And so everybody was talking and talking. We went through the group that I was pacing, and Dr. Lawrence said, well, we don't know about you. And so I tell them about me. They started asking questions. He's like, I want to get your name and number after the run. I say, okay. After the run, he's waiting around, gets my name and number. One day he calls me, asks me for my email. He sends me an article for me to read that he wrote about when I paced the hot chocolate. And so he started following me. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start telling my story, and I'm going to start letting people know. And I was like, if I come up dead, it got to do with the company, the organized crime unit of HPD, this detective, and the guys that tried to kill me at work. And so ever since then, it was like the guys stopped. And so I've been telling my story ever since. And so in this book, Metal Monday, it's a little bit more than just the bling that we get from a race. Mm-hmm. It's really about getting hope back in humanity. It's talking about, the whole weight loss journey, the shooting at work, what happened afterwards, what I've been struggling with, the PTSD, the triggers. I was at a race in central farming land country. I think, what was it? I want to say it wasn't Nebraska. I forget where it was. Wyoming. I was there and we were doing a marathon. But they had what they call a trap house, in the South. We know what a trap house is in the city, but there it's a shooting expedition. And so I had no idea that was going to be going on. The race director didn't. And they were about a mile off the course, probably less than that from us. But the weapons they were using were so powerful, you could feel the recoil, you could feel the vibrations from them shooting. And people was panicking. People thought they were shot. And I'm sitting up here, and I got it on video. I put my video on because I had to focus on something. I had to focus on myself. I had to talk to myself. But I'm sitting there going through this thing, and I'm like, I got to go out here, turn around, and come back. I got out there, and I was like, I'm not going back by there. So the guy called for somebody to come pick me up. But there were people that were Vietnam vets, had been over in the Gulf, had been over in Iraq. People were triggered that had been in war, but people were triggered that ain't never seen no war. I mean, people was crying. It was like a war zone. And that popped us. I had to deal with that in a race. The cannons at the New York City Marathon. I had no idea about those cannons. Those cannons, I mean, I don't know if you've done New York yet, but you feel the cannon.
You hear it and feel it, huh?
Yeah,
Yes.
I did New York Marathon.
Yeah, so And so I struggle with a lot of stuff on the road all the time. Cancellations, hotels, getting stuff mixed up, having to sleep outside in my car, and freezing weather up in Oklahoma. I mean, all kind of stuff. It was like a testing ground for me. But you got to remember, I had withdrawn so much that I wasn't going nowhere. I wasn't talking to nobody. I wasn't doing anything. I was literally withering away. And I remember at one time I called my doctor and I asked him, I said, I think you need to have me committed. And he said, well, let's talk about it. And we got to talking. He didn't. But I was like, that's where I was. That's where I was. So when I do this stuff about mental health, running for my mental health, I'm talking from a place that was so far removed. I thank God for my aunt. One of my aunts, she called me and she said, I'm so proud of you. And I was like, for what? She was like, your mom told me that you're seeing a psychologist and a psychiatrist and getting some help. She said, I'm so proud of you. She said, you know how many men and especially Black men don't want to get help? But I know why. Because I can talk about the stereotypes. I can talk about how people talk about me. I can tell you how my family has talked about me, how friends have talked about me, because I get it. But you know what? The more that people was treating me a certain way, the more I realized they didn't know how to handle what I was going through. Right. This is the best way that they can handle it. I asked my god brother one day, I said, why do you treat me like this? Why do you talk about me like this? And he looked at me, 6'2", and he about 400 pounds for real. And he busted out crying. And he said, I just want my brother back. I just want my brother back. I don't know how to deal with this. He was like, crying hard. I'm trying to deal with this the best way I know how. And he breaking down this and that. And I'm like, dude, if you feel like this behind what I went through, can you imagine how I'm feeling? I need your support. I've been taken advantage of financially because I've had to trust close family members to help me through situations. And I got taken advantage of financially. I've been through the ringer. So when I come, like when I ask people to let me come to their expo, let me come to their stage and talk about, running for my mental health, I'm sharing with them. I'm being so transparent with these people that I think it scares them some. Some of them are responding. Some of them are giving me a platform. But at the same time, some of them are like, whoa, I don't think this is the venue for that. I'm like, do you know why a lot of people are even out here running? Not everybody out here trying to, get a PR. Or a lot of people out there dealing with some serious issues.
Literally running for their life.
Running for their life. I was up in Canada, Ottawa, Canada, for the Ottawa Marathon weekend, which is a great weekend to race. If you want to go do a race in Canada, go to Ottawa. But they let me speak both days at the expo. And you would have swore we were at a mental health convention. I had people stop. People asked questions while I was on stage. And then when I got off and I was walking around, people was asking questions. People was talking to me, crying. People was talking about their bad experiences with mental health professionals. They know they need help, but they're so afraid. It was just, and then this is off the heels of COVID and public shootings. I've been trying to get into government, cities, schools to talk about this because I went through it. And most people that have gone through it, they're not wanting to talk about it. The doctors that I see specialize in people that have gone through workplace shootings or public shootings. And they told me, both my psychiatrist and my psychologist told me that out of all their patients, that I have fought back and rebounded and have come such a long way in a short period of time. They said they've been working with people for decades that haven't got to the point where I am. But I tell them my hope is in Christ. And whatever God has allowed in my life, I want to use it. At the same time, I'm a frail vessel. I'm 1 second away from breaking down every time I talk about this stuff and think about it. The level of pain and hurt and betrayal, and then to have a company run a smear campaign on you, involve themselves in aspects of your life that no company should have ever got involved in, all behind a dollar bill.
Yeah.
I mean, I was made to feel like I did this to myself by the company and by the police.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So this book is a lot more. When I'm talking about, it's just not a 50-state vacation. I'm not complaining about the waiter or the spaghetti or things of that nature. I'm really dealing with some issues throughout the book.
And give us the full title of the book, Aaron.
It's called Metal Monday.
Metal Monday.
Yeah, Metal Monday, my attempt to run 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 weeks after being shot 5 years after being shot 5 times.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah. The title is Metal Monday. It's on Amazon, and you can get it from me directly if you want an autograph copy. But the title is Metal Monday, MEDAL. And the subtitle is My Quest to Run 50 Marathons in 50 States in 50 Weeks, 5 years after being shot 5 times.
Wow.
I wrote that down, man, and I wrote it down for a reason, the subtitle. And I looked at it and I'm thinking, that's a lot. That is a lifetime of stuff in that one statement, man. That is astounding, overwhelming, amazing, awesome.
Yeah, and I'm a strong talker, man, but you got me speechless here.
Yeah.
This is powerful right here, man. A lot of people need to hear this one.
And I feel nobody died that day. I was the worst shot. But I also, at times, I feel survivor's guilt. Like when all those kids was shot up here in Texas at the elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
There was a BGR sister that lived out in Katy. She was a nurse. This was about 2020. Was standing outside with her grandkids, letting them hold sprinklers on the 4th of July, to celebrate the 4th of July, when a bullet from celebratory fire came down, hit her in the neck. One bullet. One. And she went like this, it was reported. And she told her family that she had been shot, passed out, and died.
Man.
So, I mean, I'm getting shot 5 times at close range. A bullet missed my femoral artery by 1 centimeter, which they told me had it hit, they was like, you would have been dead before the ambulance could get you to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because I would have bled out.
Yeah.
So there's even more to this. This book has 343 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cut down after it was written. It was cut down from like 458 pages. We had to cut it down. He was like, we got to get it down to about 350 pages. And so we got it down as much as we could, but I'm telling you, I had to go back through and read it to fact check it. And I was just blown away. I was taken away. And it was one thing to think about it. It was one thing to talk about it. But it was another thing for me to actually read a year and a half worth of interviews being put in a story of my voice.
Amazing. I'm honored to be sitting here talking to you, man. I do want an autograph copy, so I will hit you up. Everybody, his book is available on Amazon.
Yes.
But they can, if anybody want an autograph copy, they could just PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, the Running Servant, at Running Servant. They all connected to me. My picture's on there. Okay. And $30 and their address and the memo, and I'll get a book out to them, an autograph copy. If they want me to say something from the heart to them specifically, just let me know you want me to, and I will. Other than that, I'm gonna just autograph it and put it in the mail.
What's your cash app?
I'm glad to be here too, sir.
What's your cash app?
It's a Running Servant. It's what's that? The money sign?
Dollar sign.
Money sign.
Dollar sign, and then Running Servant. Okay. My PayPal is at Running Servant. My Venmo is at Running Servant. Zelle I used to take, but something happened with Zelle. And depending on your bank, they may let it go through, they may not let it go through. Mm-hmm. But even my Zelle is at Running Servant. So I've been kind of like getting away from that because people say they send me an order and I'm like, I never got it. And they go back and they look and they see that the money never went through.
Yeah, so, some banks have recently had some issues with Zelle. I'm not sure which banks.
Yeah, my bank dropped it altogether.
Yeah.
So it was like the second time. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have this opportunity to share. And I just want to make a plea to us as Black men. There's nothing wrong with getting therapy. You may not need a psychiatrist. You may not need a psychologist like me, but there's nothing wrong with getting therapy.
That's
There's
right.
nothing wrong with scheduling time to meet with your pastor and talk on a consistent basis with your pastor or your elders or somebody that can help you talk through some things. My elders have helped me a whole lot. Prayed over me, talked to me, asked me hard questions, loved on me. So that's great. I know you wanted to talk about how I got started with Black Men Run. I told you how I got started running. There was a guy, Mr. Jerry in Houston. Jerry, he's a runner. He's older now, Vietnam vet, but he was running the Chevron Marathon when it was 2 loops downtown area before they had tens and thousands of participants. One day he put me to the side at church and said, "Hey, I'm running with this group, Black Men Run. I want to put your name in as our chaplain." And so that's how I got connected with Black Men Run. Okay. Is that he wanted to put my name in as a chaplain, and so I got started there. But I pretty much with Black Men Run, Black Girl Run, everybody pretty much has adopted me. Matter of fact, the Black Girl Run just had an event in my backyard. I call Terry Hershey my backyard. They're going to be over at the Bridge of the Gods Marathon up in Oregon this weekend. Shout outs to them. Everybody that's going there from Black Girl Run. But I want to support people because running literally has saved my life 3 or more times. It really has.
Well, Aaron Burros, man, thank you for being on the show today, man. You've been an inspiration, man. I'm looking forward to reading your book, man. I'll be sending something out. I can do in that Cash App deal, man. But I want all our listening audience, I want you all to go as far as you can see. And when you get there, you can go a little further. You have just experienced the Brotherhood.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing.
Thanks for being on the show, Aaron.
Thank y'all for having me.
Man,
it's find the button to cut it off.
It's a blessing. Man.
Yes, it is.
Okay.